Ah yes, you gotta love it when you get a Patreon request for a band and an album that you've been wanting to get into for a very long time, but maybe you just haven't found the time. That's my excuse. What's up everyone, John from ARTV. Today it is time to talk about the band Rush from Canada. Their 8th studio album is what I'm reviewing today. It released in 1981 and it's titled Moving Pictures. A special thank you to my patron Andrew for making this video possible. If you would like to get a request done, maybe for another throwback review, perhaps you have a top 10 in mind for me, or maybe even an episode idea for my Series 7 on Sunday. Find out how you can make a request over on my Patreon while also supporting the channel. It's the top link down below. With Rush forming so long ago at this point, it's easy to see why they've called it a day now. As recently as January of 2018, them commenting on it, basically saying that it was time to hang it up. I totally understand why, but that's not just something that goes out like a faint cry in the night. No, they leave behind a legacy of 20 studio albums, the 8th of which I'll be talking about today, and a variety of different stylings. They went through a phase in the 80s slightly after Moving Pictures where they had a more synthesized sound, and listening to this album, Moving Pictures, just kind of gave me a taste for wanting to hear more. They have something so special on their hands, and all of the 3 members have such a unique talent. They all possess so much. I love their lead singer Geddy Lee's voice. It's something that can belt high, but also can hit low and flow very melodically while still howling in places. Their guitarist Alex Lifeson is extremely talented and dare I say underrated, because after getting more into this band with this album and just looking at what people say to me all the time about the greatest guitarist ever, I don't really hear his name come up that often, and for as big as Rush have been, it sounds like he should be a part of that conversation. Now, we can't go without talking about Neil Peart because he's incredible behind that drum kit, and I also found it notable that he actually writes the majority of the lyrics for Rush. It's not always the drummer you hear about writing the lyrics, but here we have it, and it works out so well. Another thing that I really love about Rush that I did not know before is just how nerdy I would say these guys are. The themes of science fiction, talking about cars, and also just other various facets of life that maybe I didn't see in the lyrics from the songs that I had heard before. It's actually really cool for a band as big as they were to be writing songs about all of these sci-fi leading moments, and that's, I don't know, just a note that I had to make. Moving Pictures released in 1981, coming hot on the heels of their 1980 release Permanent Waves. They had had plans to tour on that record for a little bit longer, and side note, I did check out that album just like I said out of sheer curiosity, and I'm really glad that I did. There's some great songs on there, obviously The Spirit of the Radio, but also some deep cuts like Jacob's Ladder are fantastic. But in terms of the sound of their 1981 album Moving Pictures, I have to admire the chemistry between all 3 band members here. The way that they play off of each other is incredible, and you can definitely feel the passion, the energy, and just an ethereal sense to the music. I love the way that Lifeson adds in these vibrant guitars at times, things that feel a little bit poppier, like on Limelight, and maybe even Red Barchetta, which, yes, I know I'm mispronouncing, but of course Lee mispronounces it in the song, so we're gonna go with that because it's easier to say. The drumming is absolutely stellar. It floored me in places just how good the grooves were and the way that he seems off-kilter but always knows exactly what he's doing. Rush are extremely good at transitioning between these more pop-driven hooks of some of the tracks like Limelight, Red Barchetta, even Tom Sawyer, which leave a lasting impression on you in the sense that you often remember the lyrics. But I love that they're also able to switch it up so easily to something more complex, like something from their Fear series, Witch Hunt. That is a track that I really admire because even though it's not technically broken down into sections, you can definitely feel that on many of their songs, not just this one. And in their Fear series, something that I of course had to Google because I'm a noob when it comes to Rush, it seems like they're talking about the fear that plagues a human and things that you go through, and this one, Witch Hunt, is actually kind of disturbing, and the way that it does stand out in the track listing, still very cool, but just a very different sound. If you're sitting down to listen to this album for the first time, or else the first time in a long time, you get a variety of different stuff, but also a cohesion that makes it a breeze to listen to. YYZ was my introduction to Rush. I played it on one of the old Guitar Hero games, and even though it is an instrumental, it always intrigued me. It's extremely complex, and I do have vivid memories of screaming at the TV because it was too damn hard to play even on a plastic instrument. And years later, I have a much deeper appreciation for this track. I've heard it plenty of times, and I had heard other songs from this record, maybe even unknowingly so. I knew Red Barchetta, I knew Tom Sawyer, YYZ, Limelight. There's a lot of hits on here, even the ones that weren't singles definitely are notable to a lot of people, and this track listing is a lot of fun. The songs do stand out on their own and can be listened to individually, but it's great how they flow together as well. Tom Sawyer is a mesmerizing composition that is great musically, of course. I love the way that they just throw in so many changes of pace when it comes to the guitars, the dark kind of dreamy synthesizers that wash this song out, and the way that they bubble up throughout the different sections of the song, but also the lyrical content here is extremely well done. I have to say, Peart's mind just seems like this expansive territory that gets explored, and yes, he did co-write this song with somebody not in the band, but still, it's a track that he brought a lot to in terms of drumming and lyrical content. This is a song that goes down as something that I really admire from the 80s. It's one of my favorite songs of that decade, perhaps of even all time. Oh, and also a huge shout out to the 2009 film I Love You Man. That was another huge reason why I love that song so much. Slapping the bass. Red Barchetta is a track literally about a car and the way that it feels behind the wheel, just gripping the road, driving it at fast speeds. And the song definitely carries that momentum that the lyrics would imply and have you think. This is such a fun song. I don't know how else to describe it, but the guitars here are definitely so well done. I like the little solos that are worked in, and the way that they just dial it up a notch in places, and the drumming, and the way that Lee unleashes vocally. It's something that is so engaging and charismatic. In fact, I think that perhaps this is tied for Tom Sawyer for my favorite on the entire LP. I've also come around on some of the other tracks that I was a little bit more lukewarm on, at least at first when I started playing this record. One of those would be the closing track, which is called Vital Signs. It's a moment that I still don't consider a top favorite, but I like the way that it breaks it down and talks about seemingly humans and computers and the way that things are related and trying to break out from the norm, or perhaps the code that you were given to perform a certain way. It's an interesting song that definitely gets stuck in your head. I love the way that he comes around, sings reverse polarity. Limelight is perhaps one that I have an unpopular opinion on because I feel like it's kind of a little bit cheesy and hasn't held up all that well. I've known this song for a long time, and it's not that I've overplayed it or it's oversaturated for me personally because I haven't heard it that many times over the years, but still, I just feel like this is a pretty standard 70s, 80s sounding cut, and it doesn't necessarily rise above. That leaves only one song to talk about. It's a two-parter, something that Rush are known for, especially in their earlier days. I'm looking at you, 2112. Yes, I listened to the 20-minute song. This song, however, is called The Camera Eye, and it was meant to capture two different sides of the world, both New York City and also London over in the UK. It has two different parts. It starts off with a long instrumental that surprisingly keeps you wound up in suspense, but once it finally breaks in with the vocals and the way that it changes from New York City to over to London, it's a pretty cool thing. I can't say that it's like the most seamless transition ever, but still, the way that it was done with the vocals, the layering with the drums, the synths, and just the mix in general, it really snaps, and something about it just feels groovy, light, and also not totally carefree, but an interesting look at two different types of society. It'd be interesting to hear this song written in 2018. My first impressions of Rush are pretty much all green lights. Thumbs up all around, despite a few moments that, like I said, I don't cling to as heavily as others. This album, Moving Pictures, is fantastic. Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning into this video. For me personally, I have to say a very strong 4.5 out of 5 to Moving Pictures. Let me know your thoughts on this classic album in the comments section down below, and let me know, What are the best Rush albums that I should spend more time with? I've already checked out a few, and even though I don't have a ton of extra time for going back and digging through content like that, I might have to make an exception here. Don't forget to leave a like on the video while you're here, subscribe to the channel because I do everything from, yes, throwback reviews to also covering current music, top 10 countdowns, everything like that. I also have a Patreon account. Obviously, if you've been watching the video, this was a Patreon request. Tap the top link down below to go support over there. Other than that, I'll see you soon for more on ARTV.